Hi, I'm Jason from MTX Audio. Today we're going to talk about our new audio solutions for the Pro XP behind me, so stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. Now we're going to take some time and walk you through the THUNDER5 kit non-ride command for the Pro XP behind me. Before we can get started on that, if you have any questions about this kit or any of the other ones, check them out online. You can get all your info there. But before we can get started, we got to do our disassembly on this machine. To remove the hood, remove the two T40 Torx bolts. Now that the hood is off, remove the dashboard's two T40 bolts. Remove the two gray trim pieces on either side of the steering column. Now we're going to want to remove the passenger side gray trim pieces. Lift out and remove the center storage pocket. And the four T20 bolts holding in the glove box. Once you've got that off, you're going to want to go ahead and remove the ride command surround. 7 T40 bolts along the dash to loosen it. Keep in mind there are two hidden behind the steering column, one on the left and one on the right. Remove the two push pins under the hood. Carefully lift up on the fender to release the side of the dashboard. Do the same on the other side. First, we're going to want to pry off the ride command cover plate. Once you've got that off, you're going to want to remove the ride command surround. Remove the seats for easier access to the center console. In the back of the center console, we're going to start by removing two T40s on either side. Open the center console and unlock the rear compartment. And lift out of the vehicle. Along the side of the driver's center console, release the T40s that hold it to the floor. Lift up on the gray center panel and carefully pull the driver's side center console plastic away. Now we need to remove the under dash tray. You're going to want to start by removing two T25 Torx that hold it in against the firewall and the 5 body clips. And lift the tray out. You can go ahead and remove your speaker grills. Next, we're going to pop out the plugs from the tweeter housing. Starting at the battery, we're going to want to run our main power harness up to the center of the vehicle. For the rear speaker harness, you want to push the single connector up into the center of your dash while running the two to the rear. All right, now we can go ahead and start to assemble our amp rack. Start by attaching your mounting blocks to the top of the amp rack. Mount your 601. Now you're going to stack the plate over the 601 and mount it down. And then go ahead and mount your 100.4 to the top of that. Also, to make it easier to install in the car, go ahead and mount your support bracket. Okay, before we install the amp rack, we want to make some quick adjustments. We can fine tune it once it's in the vehicle, but I'm going to run through all the settings that I suggest, or we suggest. Starting on 600, you don't need to worry about the input level. It comes to you at low. We're only going to use the gain in the crossover. First, we're going to take the gain to about 3/4 or 3 o'clock, and the crossover, we're going to go to about noon. And then that one's set. Now up here on the 4-channel, we're going to do a few more things. We're going to put the crossovers in from full to 80 and from full to high. And then again, setting these gains about 3 o'clock. Now if you have a 4-seater, you may want a little more gain in the back, but we can do that while they're in the car as well. So we go ahead and we put our caps back on and we'll get this installed. To make it easier to install the amp rack, disengage the wire harness that runs along the bottom of the cross tube. And at the same time, snap your clamps into place. Lower down the amp rack to align with your clamps. Slide your hardware through. Go ahead and tighten your top hardware. And secure the brace to the firewall. Before we can install our front speakers, we have to install our mounting bracket. Slide your enclosure in from underneath the dashboard and attach with the provided hardware. You're going to also want to attach your rear brace. When installing the tweeter, make sure the tweeter keyway is in line with the tweeter housing. Go ahead and make your connections from the harness that comes from the pod below it. And we're going to do the same on the passenger side. All right, we've gotten to the point that we need to install our radio into our dashboard. But before we do that, I want to point out a few things. One, when you remove the trim panel, you'll notice there's a square surrounded by a circle. Now this is dead center, and we're going to cut that out with a 3-inch hole saw. But do not count on these to match the holes in the mounting of the radio, because they don't. I'm not sure what that's actually for, but for now, let's just go ahead, get our 3-inch hole drilled in there, then we'll center the radio and drill our own holes. Using an Aller small screwdriver, mark your holes for drilling. Go ahead and drill your holes out. All right, now that we got our front plate drilled out, we want to snap it back into the housing and just double check that these screws go all the way through and aren't blocked by anything, but you can re-drill it as necessary. Now we're going to go ahead and slide the radio in. For more room behind the radio, remove the 2 studs from the radio housing. Feed your wire harness through your rear mounting plate. Line the rear mounting plate up with the holes you drilled earlier and attach with the screws that came with the radio. All right, now that we got our radio installed into our faceplate, we can go ahead and put our trim bezel on. That'll just snap right on. It's kind of a finished look. And the second thing we want to do to make it easier on ourselves is wire in the radio's power harness and the amplifier input harness before you put it in the car. It makes your life a lot easier. There we go. Now we're ready to move to the car. We're going to start by feeding the wire harness through the opening. Snap the ride command bezel back into place. All right, now it's time to go ahead and connect our RGB controller to our pulse style connector. To do that, we use solder and seal connections. So let's go ahead and get that done. In preparation for the EBC install, we went ahead and used one of the leftover blank panels, drilled a hole and mounted it in the center. This will give it a nice flush look in the dash. Connect your RGB and radio harness pulse connector to the pulse connector bank. Now we're going to go ahead and make our power connections. Now we'll make our remote turn-on connections. Connect the audio input harness to the 4-channel amplifier. Connect the RCAs to the subwoofer amplifier's input and our EBC connections. Locate your speaker output harness. Connect the white output plug of the harness to the output plug on the amplifier. Connect the front speaker plugs to the harness. Go ahead and plug in your rear speaker plug. To start the subwoofer installation, slide the 2 provided speed clips into place on the firewall. Reaching from the top of the dash, grab the sub enclosure while pushing from the bottom, rotating it upwards towards you. Continue pushing from the bottom until it snaps into place around the cross member. When installing the sub, be mindful of where the sub enclosure harness is so that it does not get pinched between the enclosure and the firewall. Now we're going to go ahead and install our top support bracket, pulling back on the sub to align the holes up. And tighten them down. We're going to install the 2 long T40s provided with the kit into the firewall, into the speed clips we placed earlier. Go ahead and finish tightening everything down. Now we can make the speaker connection from the output of the 600.1. Now we're going to move on to the rear speakers. Locate the position you want to mount them in. Install the clamp around the bar. Using the provided hardware, tighten it into place. To make it easier to run your wires, remove the 2 push pins from the back of the vehicle. At this point, we're going to make our rear speaker connections, running our wire away from anything that could possibly get hot. Zip tie it into place. And we're going to do the same on the other side. With everything installed, we're now ready to make our connections at the battery to go ahead and test everything out. You want to do this prior to putting the vehicle back together. All right, now that we've tested the system and know there's nothing wrong there, we installed our grill badges. We're going to get these grills on and start reassembling this vehicle. Now that we've got the vehicle all wrapped up and tested, as you can see, it's not that difficult to put in. It takes a little bit to take the vehicle apart and reassemble it, but other than that, the kit itself is not bad. But if you have any questions, hit us up on any of our social media sites or call our tech line. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, keep the wheel side down and we'll see you on the trails.